When we hear the word circus, we often imagine clowns, acrobats, or dancing elephants. But in the early days, it was rougher, stranger, and way more weird. Sideshows sat just outside the main tent. Smaller stage, tighter crowd, and nothing held back. People paid to see other people who were born different, too tall, too small, too twisted, or just too hard to explain. So join us on this remarkable journey as we look at the 15 freak show performers that really existed. Number 15. Captain Constantinus. Well, Captain Constantinus is often mistaken as America's first tattooed performer, though that title actually belongs to James F. O'Connell, who debuted at Barnum's American Museum in 1842 and published a wild memoir. But Constantinus was by far the most tattooed man of the 19th century, maybe the world. His entire body, including his eyelids, scalp, finger webs, and genitals, was covered in Burmese-style red and blue tattoos of animals and mythological symbols. Only the soles of his feet were untouched. Born in Albania in 1836, he falsely claimed he was kidnapped and forcibly tattooed, one of many fictional backstories common at the time. Despite the lie, academics at the University of Vienna studied his body art. He toured under both infamous P.T. Barnum and the Great Farini, reportedly earning $1,000 a week and selling embellished autobiographies. By the time he died, he was wealthy, allegedly leaving his estate to the Greek Church of London and several famous sideshow performers he'd worked with. Number 14. Lucia Zarate. Lucia came into the world in 1864, and by all records, she is one of the smallest fully grown humans ever documented. She stopped growing at 24 inches tall and weighed a mere 4 pounds as an adult, an effect of a rare genetic condition known as Majewski osteodysplastic primordial dwarfism type 2. Her bones were delicate, her body fragile, but her presence was sharp, lively, and magnetic. By age 12, she was already a featured performer on American stages, hailed as the smallest living woman. Audiences were stunned not just by her small size, but by how expressive she was on stage. Behind the velvet curtain, though, her life was not as glamorous. In 1890, she was stranded aboard a train during a brutal winter trip through Colorado. With no working heat, Lucia died of exposure at just 26. She left behind more than a medical oddity. Lucia became a haunting symbol of how wonder and exploitation often walked hand in hand. Number 13. Betty Lou Williams. Betty Lou used what others called deformity to build a better life. Born in Georgia in 1932 with a parasitic twin, the second twin's head, legs, and underdeveloped arms were attached to her abdomen. The youngest of 12 children in a poor family, Betty's future looked uncertain until a showman discovered her when she was only 1 year old. Her parents agreed to let her appear in sideshows. By age 2, she caught the attention of Ripley himself, who featured her widely. Betty earned $250 a week as a child when the average worker made $30. As an adult, her income exceeded $1,000 weekly. She used it well, buying her parents a 260-acre ranch and funding college for all 11 siblings. Audiences may have come for spectacle, but Betty gave them something more: pride without shame. Her life wasn't about exploitation. It was about reclaiming control, turning what others pitied into something powerful and deeply human. Number 12. Half man and half frog. In 1902, a strange report came out of South Carolina. Witnesses claimed a frog-like creature emerged from a lake, croaked oddly, then disappeared underwater. It wasn't the first man-frog sighting, and freak shows eagerly turned these stories into live acts. In the late 1800s, Juno the Frogman, real name Campbell, drew crowds in costume. By 1903, another act named Fairy the Human Frog toured as a contortionist in frog gear. While some used outfits, Others leaned on real physical traits. In 1866, France displayed a performer described as having a deformed body, leathery skin, and a frog-like face with bulging eyes and clammy texture. One of the most recognized was Otis Jordan, born in 1925 with ossified limbs. After struggling to find work, he entered the sideshow scene in 1963. Otis learned to roll and light cigarettes using his mouth, earning him a consistent place on the circuit. His presence turned myth into reality, no costume required. Number 11. Len and Ernie Defort. Ernie Defort was born with a parasitic twin attached to his chest. Basically, it was a condition so rare it made him both a medical study and a sideshow curiosity. The undeveloped twin had no head but had 2 arms, 2 legs, another liver, and fully functional kidneys. Billed as 2 boys with 1 head, the second body was called Len, or sometimes Lester. Most of Ernie's brief career took place in Canada, where audiences were drawn by curiosity rather than cruelty. By 1942, the extra weight began to threaten his health, and doctors advised removal. At 12, he underwent the operation and survived, but the loss affected him deeply. Ernie had grown emotionally attached to Len, seeing him as more than an appendage. Recovery took time, but he adapted, learned to define himself beyond the show, and eventually lived a quiet life. Still, that bond to his twin remained an inseparable part of who he was, even long after Len was gone. Number 10. Mirren Dejo. Mirren baffled science. In the 1940s, he became internationally known for pushing swords, rods, and steel needles completely through his torso without bleeding, pain, or infection. Audiences watched in disbelief as objects passed through his chest and out his back while he stood calmly, even talking mid-act. At first, doctors and skeptics dismissed it as sleight of hand, but X-rays taken during examinations confirmed the blades had truly pierced his body. Medical professionals couldn't explain how he survived such trauma or why no vital organs were damaged. Dejo claimed his abilities came through spiritual enlightenment, not trickery, insisting his body had transcended normal limits. His acts blurred the boundary between science, faith, and endurance. Viewers were divided. Some saw him as divine, others as disturbing. In 1948, he died after swallowing a steel needle for another demonstration. Whether miracle or mystery, Mirren is one of history's strangest performers, a man who truly challenged human possibility. Number 9. Ralph Kruner. Well, now this one is strange. Ralph Albert Kruner, known as the Elephant Skin Man, was born in 1888 in Montpelier, Vermont. He had an extremely rare skin disorder that caused thickened folds around his feet, knees, and hands, giving them a tough, wrinkled texture. His unusual appearance led to stories that bordered on folklore. One popular tale claimed that his mother, while pregnant, was frightened by a stampede of elephants, which supposedly caused his skin to resemble theirs. Though obviously false, it became part of his public image. Ralph joined the sideshow circuit in the early 1900s, where he was billed under various versions of his nickname. Audiences were fascinated less by fear and more by curiosity. He was known for his calm, kind personality, often joking with spectators about his elephant curse. Despite his condition, he lived comfortably from his performances and remained active in the circuit until his passing in 1952. His story blended fact, myth, and humanity into quiet showmanship. Number 8. Conjoined Colloredo Brothers. Lazarus and Joanne's Colloredo lived one of history's strangest shared lives. Born in Genoa in the early 1600s, the twins were joined at the chest and shared vital organs, making separation impossible. Their condition baffled physicians and stirred fascination across Europe. They traveled widely, examined by doctors, theologians, and royalty alike. Joanne's, the underdeveloped twin, had no independent consciousness, but moved faintly at times, which unnerved onlookers. Lazarus, intelligent and articulate, often managed their appearances and earnings. Despite public gawking, he carried himself with dignity, insisting that both deserved respect. Their travels blurred the line between medical study and spectacle, showing a world still caught between superstition and science. Reports described them as both wondrous and disturbing, yet their persistence and composure turned curiosity into endurance. Centuries later, the Colorado brothers remain one of the earliest and most documented examples of conjoined twins, remembered not only for their rarity, but for how human they made the impossible seem. Number 7. Edward Mordache. Edward was born into English nobility during the 19th century, but his life was haunted by a deformity that defied understanding, a second face growing on the back of his head. Unlike a growth or tumor, it appeared disturbingly human, capable of faint expressions. Stories claimed it whispered to him at night, taunting and mocking him until he could barely sleep. Edward begged doctors to remove it, but surgery was impossible at the time and would have likely killed him. No medical records confirmed the whispers, yet the legend persisted. Some viewed him as cursed, others as a medical wonder, but Edward lived in isolation, tormented by something no one else could comprehend. Despair eventually overtook him, and he took his own life while still young. Whether exaggerated or true, his story became a dark symbol of how tragedy, science, and myth often blur together. Edward Mordache remains one of the most unsettling figures in medical folklore. Number 6. Alfredo Cadona. Alfredo Cadona wasn't a freak. He was a phenomenon. He was born in Sonora in 1893 to a family of circus performers and grew up in the air. His parents were trapeze artists, and by his teens he was already performing daring mid-air stunts. Alfredo became the first man to finish the triple somersault, a move that secured his legend. With his siblings, he performed as the Flying Cadonas, stunning crowds across the world. He married fellow aerialist Clara Curtin in 1917, later divorcing her, then married the equally famous Lillian Leitzel, a volatile, passionate partnership. When Leitzel fell during a performance in 1931 and died 2 days later, something in Alfredo broke. He remarried, but injuries and grief ended his career. In 1937, overwhelmed and lost, he shot his third wife, Vera Bruce, before taking his own life. Cadona's story isn't about circus mystery. It's about brilliance, loss, and a man who flew too high and couldn't land again. Number 5. The Clown Who Ran for President. Dan Rice wasn't your average circus act. He was chaos in a top hat. Born Daniel McLaren in 1823, he trained pigs to respond to questions, tossed political one-liners at the crowd, and flexed his biceps between jokes. He earned $1,000 a week long before P.T. Barnum hit his stride. When Zachary Taylor ran for president, Rice turned his circus wagon into a campaign tool. And just like that, the phrase, "jump on the bandwagon," entered the dictionary. He also gave us one-horse show, straight out of his early low-budget tours. But Rice didn't just blur lines, he trampled them. In 1864, he ran for the Pennsylvania State Senate. In 1868, he ran for president. Yes, seriously. He lost, of course, but the fact that a clown ever made it that far, that part stuck. Dan Rice wasn't just a performer, he was a mirror, reflecting back everything absurd, brilliant, and broken about America. He didn't wear a mask, he wore the whole circus. Number 4. Hugh Bailey. Hugh Bailey, often billed as the Pretzel Man, Spider Boy, or Crawfish Boy, was born in 1935 with severely twisted and shortened limbs. His arms and legs were bent at extreme angles, giving him a uniquely contorted form. Despite his condition, Hugh was known for his sharp wit, humor, and confidence, never treating his body as a limitation. In the 1950s, he joined traveling shows where he performed feats of flexibility and self-sufficiency, shocking audiences by moving gracefully in ways they thought impossible. He also appeared in the 1974 horror film The Mutations, which featured real sideshow performers. Unlike some exploited acts of the past, Hugh was respected among his peers and considered one of the last genuine sideshow veterans. His physical difference became his signature, not his burden. Though little is known about his later life, Hugh Bailey's name endures among sideshow historians as a man who turned adversity into independence, living life entirely on his own terms. He was not a freak, but Hugh. Number 3. Anna Swan. Anna Swan's life was extraordinary in both size and spirit. As a child in Nova Scotia, she grew faster than anyone expected, already 4.5 feet tall before age 5, 6'1" by 10, and eventually reaching 7 feet 5 inches. In 1865, she joined P.T. Barnum's Museum in New York, where tragedy struck when the building caught fire. Her escape was nearly impossible due to blocked stairways, but rescuers managed to get her out safely. She resumed performing across the U.S. and Europe, even appearing before Queen Victoria. Later, she married fellow giant Martin Van Buren Bates, who stood nearly her height. Together, they became known as the Giant Couple, admired not only for their scale, but for their grace and intelligence. Anna's life wasn't defined by spectacle. It was built on quiet strength. Behind the show banners and measurements stood a woman who handled fame and hardship with patience, dignity, and calm resilience. So, what do you think about her? Well, let us know. Number 2. The Ape Woman. Julia Pastrana, known worldwide as the Ape Woman, was born in 1834 in Mexico with a rare condition called hypertrichosis, which caused thick black hair to cover her face and body. She also had gingival hyperplasia, which enlarged her lips and gums, giving her features a strikingly unusual look. Exhibited internationally, Julia was marketed cruelly as half woman, half beast. But behind the exploitation was a talented performer. She sang, danced, and charmed audiences on major stages, including Broadway. Her husband and manager, Theodore Lent, controlled her career and profited heavily from her fame. In 1860, Julia gave birth to a son who shared her condition, but the child died within days. Julia died shortly after from complications of childbirth. Her embalmed body and that of her baby were exhibited for decades across Europe before finally being returned to Mexico in 1972. Her life remains both a tragedy and a testament to strength under relentless public cruelty. In my opinion, she was the most beautiful woman. Number 1. Ching Ling Fu and Chung Ling Soo. William Ellsworth Robinson, better known as Chung Ling Soo, became a celebrated magician, but before him came the real one, Ching Ling Fu. Ironically, while Chinese immigrants were facing deportation or exploitation, the Chinese magician image was being imitated by white performers. The real Ching Ling Fu, born Chi Ling Kwa, amazed audiences at the 1898 Trans-Mississippi exhibition in Omaha. His tricks included producing full tubs of water, milk, and ducks from cloth, blowing smoke that turned into streamers or a 9-foot pole, and performing the original torn and restored paper illusion. Soon, imitators filled vaudeville circuits with names like Tung Pin Soo and Rush Ling Toy. But Robinson, rebranded as Chung Ling Soo, stole the spotlight. He never broke character, spoke fake Chinese, used interpreters, and copied Fu's routines. In 1918, during a bullet catch trick in London, the gun misfired and fatally shot him. The illusion ended there. And the real Fu? He kept performing, no mask needed. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.